Compasses and the military use of magnetism. Now, this is a podcast of mini podcasts or vodcasts on magnetism. Put them all together and see which ones make the most sense and the most order. So most people attribute the invention of compasses to the Chinese, and where they put a lodestone, a direction finding stone, on some straw and let it float, and let it float and stabilise itself and point in a direction. Trying to actually work out when the Chinese use this is interesting. They've got literature there. Very interesting is the Mongol Empire, when they sent down a big army to smash up the Indonesians for not paying their tribute, so to speak. So the basic idea is that in a dipole, if you've got a north-south dipole and the field lines are pointing that direction upwards, the north dipole will rotate to that direction. So it's something called a torque or turning force, and it's very, very, I suppose, integral to magnetism. We'll get into that a bit later. So a very useful thing to be able to then have a device which will then when you've got no other clues to point you in a direction. And this was a great military advantage to have one, and so the Vikings had this as their secret direction finding device, and they didn't tell the Middle Ages monks and monasteries that they were using it. So it was your archetypal military secret kept from the world. Then people eventually worked it out, and you had Dr. Gilbert in the time of Queen Elizabeth, about the time when the British were going to expand across the globe, managed to actually link the Vikings didn't necessarily had a story, and then they had a story associated with the compass. The English had a map, and the compass is associated with it. So it's not definitely clear that the Venetian salesman, the Renaissance. It's a Renaissance invention, the use of compass and map and direction finding. We also had the stars to give you a direction. So it's very important. The thing is, up in the northern hemisphere, in those northern climes, you often have a cloud cover, so the compass came in handy then. The next sort of military notion comes around the Napoleonic Wars, when they began to not use lodestones but use iron. And of course, they didn't. Electromagnets happened in 1836 beyond. So Napoleonic Wars are about 30 years ahead prior to this. And so what they did is they found a piece of metal which happened to be magnetic, and the British used to get a needle and just stroke it ever so lightly across, enough vibrations such that the vibration would set the domains, and not so much that it would destroy it. And essentially they had, their military secret was in fact an old guy who was much better than anybody else, and he would go up into a hall and spend his day making compasses for the British Navy, and he had his thing, and the French were trying to go, oh la la, I wonder where it is, and they sent spies out to try and find out, and they were put off the scent because they had to have their old guy doing it. Then you've got compasses, magnetisms in the German, I'll just go off the top of my head, the German magnetic mines, and what it meant is that when a ship went past, it would cause the needles to deflect. Obviously the mine would be no direction, so it would have a mine would be sitting there. Obviously you couldn't orient it there, it would have a preferred direction, and when the needle was moved, it would set the mine off, so you have to set it up. So you couldn't get the mine of the dirty big magnetic field and orient it there. It would have to be there, measure the Earth's magnetic field, and when that field varied, all of a sudden the ship coming past it would blow up. And the Germans dropped, for some reason, whatever they were doing, they were dropping these mines in the Thames River, and then someone dropped it on a mud flat and it was found, and they organised a degaussing thing, which is this large magnetic field where it ramps up and tails down, and in the old TV sets you used to have degaussing wands on the outside, and it would set it up and slowly close the oscillations down very smoothly, So even now, if you want to get a magnetic screwdriver, there's 2 holes you put it in, and one to magnetise and another degaussing one, which as you go across it, so it's important in terms of degaussing. The only other military really aspect was when the Americans were using the paleomagnetic field of lava flows on the Arctic, the Atlantic floor, for the submarines to actually work out where they were. So it was actually like a magnetic barcode. As they come across, it would go north, south, north, south, north, south, and then on the other side of the ridge it would go north, south, north, south, the opposite way. And this was really the killer evidence for not for continental drift, but plate tectonics. So plate tectonics is the continental drift is the observation, plate tectonics is the mechanism, and as the lava is flowing out, it's writing itself a tape, hot temperature, the Earth's field is flipping back and forward. And I'll give a little bit of a story later on about a fantastic 1975 NATO conference and the link with codes and the code of the Earth moving back and forth. Thanks a lot for listening. Come on, sorry.